to me, worries me about Dragon Ball Daima because there's more of that in this episode. In my review for the episode, I pointed out that this is likely the reason as to why Bulma kept using the dragon to give herself cosmetic physical upgrades, because she sees her skin as a kid again, and obviously when Daima ends, they're all going to go back to being adults, and then in the future she would use the Dragon Balls, actually misuse them in many ways, to make herself look younger and more attractive. In my review, I discussed how funny it was that we see Goten and Trunks talking to each other, but not really talking. We can just read their thoughts, and how they borrowed this from an old 80s comedy film called Look Who's Talking. I'm not sure how popular that movie was in Japan, and it's not a movie that's very well remembered here, but I don't think we've ever seen babies speaking telepathically in any of the Dragon Ball shows. So this is at least new for the franchise. I do consider it still an Easter egg because it may have been Look Who's Talking, or perhaps there's a Japanese equivalent. Who knows? Something Dragon Ball Daima has already done a bit more consistent than GT is that Kid Goku, now after the wish, has to get reaccustomed to his body. Same thing goes for Vegeta and Piccolo. So even as martial artists and as skilled as they are, because you have new body with new weight distribution, your limbs are a different size and length, you have to get reaccustomed to it, which is why Goku struggles even flying. Something he's done for decades in this episode. GT, I felt sort of was a bit inconsistent, where Goku would know some things and not know some things. Here it appears like Goku is sort of just needing time to adjust. And that's good. However, I will say that because Goku, Vegeta, and Piccolo are all lifelong martial artists, that means it won't take that long for them to get reaccustomed to these new bodies. Supreme Kai confirms with Goku that Degasu is indeed his younger brother, and originally the reason for this is because Toriyama, many years ago in the early 2010s, discussed that all the Kais come from a magic kaiju tree that plants Shinjin fruit. I've talked about this in multiple videos recently because that is what the man himself said, and it was published and everything. It appears like that story may or may not have been dropped, but originally we did not know the location of this tree, and also originally in those days the demon realm was said to be at the bottom of Universe 7, sort of tucked away from the rest of the universe. But now Dragon Ball Daima is kind of intimating that the demon realm may exist in a separate part of the multiverse, and that the world between worlds could end up being a situation or a location where you can link to other universes because the demon realm is no longer a part of Universe 7 like Toriyama had originally said. Now, this was not said in Dragon Ball Z or in Dragon Ball Super. This was an interview Toriyama did many years ago for a magazine where he revealed this backstory. However, as many of you know, Toriyama is very forgetful, so it's possible that he just forgot, or the true answer has not been revealed yet. I think the best thing to do now is to wait and try to be patient and see where it goes, and see if maybe we get a better explanation of the demon realm and how it fits with the multiverse in the next few weeks. Piccolo in this episode had a couple of very interesting bits of dialogue that tell us more about the backstory of the Namekians. He's the first one to reveal that Neva is the Namekian that stayed behind in the demon realm when the Namekians would port over, when they would come over from the demon realm into Universe 7. And the fact that Piccolo has knowledge of that is quite fascinating. Now, originally, I assumed that that knowledge was from Kami or from his days as Demon King Piccolo before he was reincarnated into this Piccolo. But multiple fans have hit me up about this and have reminded me that Piccolo also has Nail inside of his body as well. And that, I think, is the key, and I'll explain why. Based on just this right here, it seems like Neva is the only or one of the only Namekians still in the demon realm. Later in the episode, Piccolo reveals that the Namekians were part of the demon realm and that at one point they escaped into Universe 7. This is something that has already been established even in the first episode. However, the knowledge of this had to come from Nail. Now, why could this have come from Nail and not Kami or Piccolo? If you go back to the original manga and Dragon Ball Z, Nappa and Vegeta were the first ones to recognize Piccolo as being a Namekian. And prior to that, Piccolo and Kami both kind of had an idea they weren't from the planet Earth because of a sort of internal anxiety or feeling internally they had. They sensed it, but the Saiyans telling them that confirmed it. So based on that, they didn't know. However, the one person that probably did know was Nail. Now, how could Nail have known? Let's not forget what Nail's job was on planet Namek. He was the bodyguard for the Grand Elder of Namek, known as Guru in the English dub, known as Saichoro in the Japanese dub. Now, the Grand Elder of Namek birthed many of the Namekians throughout many years and is one of the oldest Namekians in existence, or at least he was at the time of the Frieza saga, which means that he's either as old as Neba or older or younger, but he's close to that sort of ancient Namekian type of lore. So obviously at some point off screen, and yes, this is an obvious retcon, but that's okay because there's tons of it in Dragon Ball. Daima as a whole is a bit of a retcon, and that's not a bad thing.